Welcome back to the Power 2 here on College Football Addiction. Boys, we are 1 month away. Did you know that? 1 month from week, actually a few days less than that. You know, obviously we're actually 23 days.
We're 23 days away from college football being back.
Yeah, 24. Today's 24. From Farmageddon across the pond. But then, 1 month from today, Alabama, Florida State, LSU, Clemson, Texas, Ohio State, the big one, a ton of stuff. Tennessee, Syracuse is that weekend. Miami, Notre Dame, a ton of fun stuff. Florida versus Long Island, which, again, I didn't know that was a school. Didn't know it was a drink. But, I would rather – how many Long Island iced teas will be served at that tailgate in Gainesville? Maybe depends on the health of a quarterback, which we'll get into here in just a moment. I do want to ask you though.
Are we throwing a gummy shark in there, to honor the sharks coming?
I think you should. Yeah.
I think you should.
Such a bad snack. I could never take the gummy sharks because I would just eat 17 of them at the tailgate because tailgate calories don't count, obviously.
True.
What is so if you're not covering a game, if you're not working, which we all kind of work on Saturdays anyway because of what we do, but if you're just free for a Saturday, right? What is your do you have a tailgate routine, or even if it goes back to college, what was your thing? We'll do this as an intro and then get into Lagway and UF here in a second.
For me personally, it was always going to Publix and getting a pub sub really early on and then getting the second one that I'd have for dinner because I just enjoyed pub subs. I grew up in Texas. We didn't have Publix around us. So the first time I got introduced to it was when I was 18 and it became a staple of my life. So I'd wake up early. I'd go to the gym. I'd either bike there or if I was lucky enough, I could get my car into the parking lot on game days in Tuscaloosa, go work out around 7 a.m., go back to where the fraternity house was, park my car early in the day. That way I could just sit there all afternoon. I wouldn't get ticketed, walk on over to Publix, go back to my apartment, get dressed, go get ready for actual coverage of the game because I was a student reporter at the time. But when I was a student reporter and I didn't have to work that day, I was at the fraternity house by 11 o'clock, sitting down, having a Bloody Mary in one hand, some type of beer in another hand, and probably a few other fancies that were probably going to get me in a lot of trouble back then if I would have actually admitted it on air.
What's the big time bar right across from the stadium there?
That's Gillette.
Yeah, Gillette's. Yeah.
With the Raymond Jammers. Yellow Hammers.
We didn't go in because the cover was over $100. It was for the Georgia-Alabama game, which is just I actually wasn't even drinking, and then also I didn't feel this is not my scene to spend that kind of money. I did walk up and get a koozie, and I actually grabbed some drinks for some other people. I got a Gatorade or a water or whatever, and it was cool to see it from the outside. There was no way I was paying that kind of money to get in and not drink, but. I probably wouldn't have paid it to get in and drink, but it was I went to a frat party instead, right across the street from Galette's, and that was way more fun because it was free. So they do it right there. Tom, what's your pregame tailgate? What's your situation if you're not working? On mute.
Oh no, are we gonna have this? This is gonna happen again?
If so, I'm gonna cry because I do have Tom for some stuff today. I'll give mine and then we'll go to Tom. And then we start with Lagway, so it'll work out fine. But yeah, for me, it's pretty straightforward. The bar scene in Tallahassee is great at night, but there's not a lot of stuff that's close to the stadium. So it very much is a great tailgate city. Some college towns are great for tailgating, some are great for bars, just based on the layout of the college town. There are no bars close to Clemson, but a ton of space. So actually there's not a lot of space in Clemson, but they find and wedge everyone into every nook and cranny that is physically possible to tailgate. So Tallahassee's similar to that. There's not a lot of great bars close. Madison Social is a big one that a lot of people go to. There are a few kind of popping up. But, the fields and the lots are massive, and there's a ton of space in Tallahassee, the way that it's laid out. So, it is truly just a tailgate hop fest, right? Kind of like LSU kind of has the area where, everybody's tailgating. Florida State has a big, huge lot. It's their old IM fields. And so people tailgate there. There are just rows and rows of tailgates, and you can hop around to as many as you want. I typically tailgate right up next to the stadium on a paved lot, but it is just an all-day, hang out, usually have Guthrie's chicken there. We have a tailgate if anybody's coming to the Alabama FSU opener. We do them for all the big games. So we'll do it for Miami. We'll do one at Florida and stuff like that. But it's just a really, pretty straightforward. Nothing really crazy. Just hit the tailgate all day and roll. So I think we have Tom back. We'll give it a shot.
We have Tom back.
Tell me it's working.
You are working. Yep. You're
Thank you,
good.
God. Okay. We'll see how long this lasts. I'm sorry.
I'm betting the over on 10 minutes, but let's hope for
My
that.
God. Where were we, gentlemen?
What
What's
is your
tailgate?
tailgate?
Yeah.
Tailgate routine when I was in college, very, very different. When I was first a freshman, I was tasked with camping out at what was then Paternoville, Nittanyville. I had the 5 a.m. shift the day of the game, and then my older brother and his friends would come in along, and they kind of handled it during the week. So kind of that rite of passage going there early on. But as I've gotten older, it's trying to get to the fields like the IM lots at Penn State probably 3 to 4 hours before kickoff, depending on the time. Like if it's going to be bad weather or something like that, you kind of gauge it accordingly. But it's just getting everything set up as quickly as humanly possible. If it's in the morning, try and do some sort of like kegs and eggs sort of situation. If it's a night game, then you're probably getting there. Like if you're crazy, you're going to get there around 8 a.m. Probably 7 p.m. game, you're getting there around like 1 minimum because you want to get a decent spot, all that sort of stuff. State College, it takes like a good 20 to 30 minutes to really walk to downtown to any of the bars. So you're really reliant on everybody around you to bring stuff. The best tailgate I ever went to was actually for a blue-white game. And it's why I lament not having spring games as much anymore, and that we actually had a slip and slide that we made out of blue tarp. I mean, my brother and his friends, and they filled up a truck bed with a tarp, ice, and beer, and we polished that thing off. So some just fabulous memories that I barely remember.
No, to me, that's always like the more underrated ones, is having the spring game where you have things that are going on around campus to where you go to the spring game and say, I was there, I got to see a little bit of the action. But by the time that the starters are out and that you got a good gauge on where you are, you head on over to the bars, you head on over to the slip and slide, you head on over to the fraternity spring parties, and you enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Because it happens every single year. That's the way I was always about it.
Yeah, I remember leaving spring games early to go over to baseball games. I remember leaving spring games early to go to other stuff, like you said, that was on campus or just other events. I fried a turkey one year at a spring game. Bro, Taggart's first year was our largest attended spring game ever. Like there was so much excitement around it. They had a concert afterward. You can go down the field, all this stuff. And it's so relaxed because it's a spring game. Like, who cares? You're not nervous about anything. You're relaxed at the tailgate. You're not worried about, like, oh, maybe I'm going to be a nervous wreck, all of week one's tailgate. And so, yeah, spring game tailgates, we fried a turkey one year. It was phenomenal. Everybody freaked out. We had a ton of former players there. Because when there's a fried turkey laying out there that's been basted in, but people are freaking out and wanting to get anything they can. So I fried gator tail at tailgates, usually for the UF game. That's a process to take the whole take the whole pan and the fryer and everything. But whatever. Sometimes if it's a late game, you can usually get away with that. Florida State's been at noon a lot lately, and so that hasn't been the case.
Fried gator, I'm not gonna lie, is a top 5 delicacy. Like when I went from Texas to the southeastern region, because Texas is its own thing. Like I promise you, if you guys ever come out here and you spend some time with me, Houston is different than Dallas, which is different than San Antonio, which is different than El Paso. It's like 6 different countries molded into one, which is why again it's half of Europe inside of it. But when I went to the southeastern region, my favorite thing that I got to have on the regular was fried gator, dude. I would kill for somebody to make fried gator the way they had it in Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi.
Yeah, doing it at tailgate, everything tastes better at tailgate. I mean, you're drunk, first of all, so yeah, all the food is great. But yeah, doing that at a tailgate is on another level of fun. So, all right, let's get on to the show.
Speaking of gators, let's do that.
Yeah. Speaking of fried gators or
cooked gators or whatever the hell they are at this point.
Yeah, are the gators cooked right now? Cole, as our SEC expert, you texted in the group this week that your thoughts around Florida might be changing a little bit. Obviously, DJ Lagway with now, I believe, either his 3rd or 4th injury since being in college for a year and a half. Obviously was dealing with some stuff in high school too. You are kind of from that area. Listen, I'll just shut up. Thoughts on Lagway, this injury? Napier says he'll be limited a little bit here in fall. He was out for the entire spring. Not great news for the Gators. I don't think it's detrimental news, but I do think that this probably puts a little bit of air out of their balloon.
Here's what I want to do, just as I guess the SEC resident and people who have to comment and say SEC homerism. My homerism may come out a little bit here, but I will say let's pump the brakes on calling a player injured prone. because of right now, we don't know what the severity is of the injury. We know that he is dealing with a boot on his foot. He is going to be limited in practice. He's not going to be 100% full go, but there was a sign that said he wasn't missing practice. It said limited at practice. So he is still going to be out there getting reps and prepared for the matchup against Long Island. And really the one that you're focusing on is that matchup against LSU in week 3. If you're losing to Long Island, it doesn't matter who's your starting quarterback. You have a lot more problems than DJ Lagway coming on in and dealing with some type of injury. The problem is, and this is where I will go ahead and say the glass is a little bit half empty. A player like DJ Lagway, I've watched in person multiple times because he grew up about 15 minutes from where I live right now. He is every bit the type of quarterback that you want to lead your program to a national title. From a skill standpoint, he has everything that you want in a quarterback that can take you to the mountaintop. Throwing mechanics, ability to play under pressure, the overall footwork is there, the accuracy, the ability to stand in the pocket and take hits. He's got it all. And this is why I say he is a top 5 quarterback coming into the season when fully healthy. Now, again, I think that he's better at this point than what you got with John Mateer. I think he's better than Drew Aller at this point. I think he's better than Arch Manning at this point. But he also is the one quarterback I have got to actually see practice. Because this is a guy that we saw last season dealing with the hamstring injury, and he missed several games. Then he came on back, and he fought through it, and he did a good job. But he also missed a majority of spring. And this isn't a new offense for him, but there are a lot of new pieces for this team. You're bringing in Vernell Brown, a 5-star wide receiver. Nashawn Montgomery comes on in. J. Michael Sturdivant comes on in from UCLA. You had in Dallas Wilson, who, for my money, I think could be this year's Ryan Williams, Cam Coleman of the SEC. He is that talented. We watched that spring game. 2 tutties, over 150 receiving yards. He's got everything. But you don't have that relationship. And the problem is that you want to learn these things with your quarterback, not just through the summer, but in actual live reps throughout practices. You want to know that you guys are speaking the same dialogue when you have to go travel to Death Valley to take on LSU, when you have to go to Miami to take on the Hurricanes, when you welcome in Texas, when you go to Jacksonville for the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, the Ole Miss game, the Florida State game. And right now, everyone at practice is fully healthy. This is the one time of the year where 99.9% of your roster that you believe can take you to a run of all runs is at its peak. And the most important position is limited in practice. And so that's a little bit worrisome. This is a guy that needs as many reps as possible. This is a guy that needs to understand and play at full speed. This is a guy that needs to be out there and unloading on players left and right. This is somebody that you want to see build that rapport. And so it's a little bit worrisome. I still don't think this is a detrimental move. Like, if we start to see him be limited in games and then they have to turn to Harrison Bailey at this point, then yeah, we have got to be concerned about the situation of Florida. So I'm not there yet. What I am saying is that when you look at a player that has everything that you want to be a Heisman finalist, a all-SEC player, an All-American, maybe even the first overall pick in an NFL draft, certainly the reason why Florida turns the corner. The thing is that you can have all the talent in the world. If you're not able to utilize that with reps and prove that you can stay actively on the field, it does you no good. I remember I was really high on Trey Lance coming out of North Dakota State. Loved his tape. Thought he was a phenomenal player. And I actually thought it was a smart move for an organization like San Francisco to draft him. But at some point, I had to stop saying when Trey Lance is out there. When we see Trey Lance, it was more so, are we going to see Trey Lance? We're not there with DJ Lagway just yet. But we're getting to that level of where you got to be optimistic, but also quite concerned on what the longevity of his career is going to be.
Here's my question to you, Cole. Is this a reflection on some shortcomings by the player or a reflection on staff in terms of the strength and conditioning? Like, what's the issue here?
Can I jump in real quick? What I've been told by UF folks, Cole, and I don't know if this will frame some of your answer, but I will just throw it in. I know this question was for Cole. I've heard that he pushes really hard in a lot of his training.
Yeah.
That is not necessarily UF encouraged. Now, we could have the argument of like, should UF be limiting him more? But I've heard some of this stuff is like just working out too hard, like just going too hard in the weight room where, yeah, maybe UF should put some handcuffs on him and say like, hey dog, chill it out. But I don't like, I would love to dog UF at all times possible. But I think this is a lot on Lagway pushing to be the biggest, fastest, strongest possible, like be a linebacker at the quarterback position, which maybe, I saw he's pushing 250 pounds. So again, I know that was directed towards Cole. I did want to share kind of the insight that I've learned on him as well. And maybe that'll help. Maybe that's exactly what Cole was going to say anyway, but that is what I've heard from some UF folks.
He has been a guy since his time at Willis High School where he won Gatorade Player of the Year that has pushed his body to the brink. And there were multiple games where you just watched him kind of take on over with his physicality, with his strengths, with his assets. And, there had been a rumor that going into his freshman year, he was dealing with a high school injury that he never got taken care of and that it elongated into the regular season. And maybe that played a factor into him with the shoulder issue throughout the spring. But then you talk to him at SEC Media Days and he says, listen, I'm practicing, I'm out there, I'm full go. And I talked to some of my UF people and they're like, yeah, he's full go, but that doesn't mean he looks great. They're still easing him in. Like there's not a lot of limitations, but you can definitely tell that there is a slight drop off. And I do think that is just from pushing your body too hard. And it's a mentality factor. You come on into college as one of the most sought after quarterback recruits in recent memory. And also, hopefully the savior for a program that when it's at its peak should be considered right alongside Alabama and Georgia as a premier location in the SEC. And you were the Gatorade Player of the Year. So there's a little bit of expectation to continue that legacy of being that guy. I think that's another thing that you have to look at. Now, can Florida say, dude, you can go 80%. You can go 50%. We don't need you to be pedal to the metal, balls to the wall, QB1 every single instance because we need you to do that when you play Georgia and Texas and Ole Miss and LSU and Florida State and Miami because this is a year that we are really banking on us building off of last season. Yeah, you could certainly say that. But also there's a part of me that goes, this is on him more than anything else as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I like the mentality. As any quarterback, you want your guy to be like Tebow at all times. But at the same time, they don't need him to be Tebow. I don't need him trucking linebackers. Does he have the physical ability to do it? Absolutely. I need him to be able to throw the ball. Tebow couldn't throw the ball quite like Lagway can and had mechanics issues. And he threw for fine while he was at UF. But Lagway doesn't have to be that guy. Right. They've got enough talent around him. Not that 08 didn't have talent around it, but I think they have enough talent around him to where he needs to not go 110%, in off-season workouts and in, the way that he's adding weight and just different things, which I think is good weight. I don't think he's out of shape or anything like that, but I don't know that he needs to play at 250 pounds like Tebow or anything like that. I think he's a little bit different and maybe back it off a little bit so that you can go 110% when you play Georgia and Texas and go on the road to College Station and play in Death Valley and play against Miami and all those things. Because, man, it feels like to me, listen, I'm not over here cheering for an injury, but it would surprise me if he made it through all 12 games healthy. It just
fair.
would. And,
I think that's fair.
And any game that they play outside of like Long Island and USF and maybe Mississippi State, any game they play Florida State this year and he's not there. It's hard to see them winning a lot of games without him. They play Tennessee at home and he's not there. That is just such a drop off there. They don't have an Arch Manning behind him, like other teams like Texas had last year, or even a quarterback that can come in. Yeah. There's not that guy behind him that I think can do anything. And so
I'll take it a step further. I'll take it a step further and just ask you guys, is there a more important player to their team success in the SEC than DJ Lagway?
I don't think so.
Because if I can look at every other roster and pinpoint something that really stands out to where if you have average to below average quarterback play, yeah, you may end up winning that game. You may end up not going to the college football playoff or winning a national title, but I think that Florida has everything that you want to be a legit threat. If you do not have DJ Lagway, your backup plan is a veteran who has bounced around from school after school after school, and you cannot turn to him or a Harvard kid that was a walk-on. That's what you have waiting in the wings. I can't buy into that. It literally is, in my opinion, the reason why we are putting the whole thing that we are doing was saying Florida is a team to watch for. They may be the most underrated and the most overrated team, depending on the health of DJ Lagway going into this year. It literally is right in that middle ground.
He's got to be healthy and, limited him in fall, limit him as much as you can. I don't know how much you'll need him against Long Island, even if or USF, to start the year, but shoot, you got a back-to-back road trip after that at LSU and Miami, and he's got to be pretty close to 100%. Those games will be tough, even if he is 100%. Let's be very fair. I do think that, you've got to figure out a way for him to make it through this season if you want to have any hope. I mean, shoot, if Billy Napier retaining his job, as we're talking, I saw Ari Wasserman has Napier number 1 on his hot seat still, and so we could argue that and say maybe that's a little high or whatever. But yeah, if Napier wants to coach again next year, Lagway's health is going to be tied to that in a big, big way. Speaking of health, let's move over to Colorado a little bit. We got good news this week on Coach Prime. A lot of people rumoring that maybe he'll step down. Maybe, his health would be too much. Obviously, we're not breaking any news here, but Coach Prime dealing with bladder cancer, which doctors said he is cured from now, will be continuing to undergo like maintenance and check-ins very often. And so very thankful that he is good. I think he's good for the sport. People either love or hate him. A lot of my fans hate him. I get why, but I think he is good for the sport. I'm glad he's still around. I saw Blake, your boy over at AYS, say that is this it was actually on the Ruffino and Joe show. I'll credit it the right way. But or maybe it wasn't. Yeah, it was on that one.
Yeah, it was Joe.
Is this their best roster? It's hard to, listen, I don't know if I'm ready to dive in like Blake did, but is this their best roster that they have, even losing Shador and Hunter?
I think the Shador Hunter team was top heavy, and I'm friends with Joe DeLeon. I think the world of that show. I think I tend to agree with them that it is more balanced. It feels more balanced than it has in the past. And Shador and Travis, there's 2 A's, 2 A+, and then it was a serious drop off in a lot of other positions. They got better incrementally at offensive line last year. They got better incrementally at running the football last year. Defensively, they got incrementally better. So that's kind of all you want to see as a head coach and as a program. You want to see those strides forward. I think they're inherently just going to look and feel different. I side with a lot of people in that for years. I thought going from Jackson State to Colorado, I thought that was going to be brief, that was solely going to be there for Shador and Shiloh and Travis Hunter. For Deion Sanders, that is. I am thrilled that he is in remission. I forget exactly how he said cured, but I hope he means in remission.
It's remission, I think. Is
right, for now. And by the way, I played high school football. If we had a porta potty on the sideline, that would have been really cool. That would have been awesome. I am curious to see if that gets utilized by people that are not named Deion Sanders and him being like, dude, that's mine. And how are they going to decorate it? How are they going to decorate it? Because they're going to swag it out, right? So anyway,
you mean the Sanders shitter is going to be available for us? I can't wait for
it. Oh God, the Prima Potty. There you go. So
I like that one actually a lot better. That was way better.
I'm just excited to see what this looks like. And honestly, again, it's easy to look at quarterback. Caden Salter going from Liberty to Colorado. What does he do for this offense that Shitter Sanders could not do? If it's not Caden Salter for whatever reason, is it Juju Lewis very early? The fact that Colorado even landed Juju Lewis signals something about Deion's longevity there. I don't think he's going to be there forever, but immediately, like the last 2 years, the Dallas Cowboys job. People have been speculating about Florida State since he got into coaching at the college level. So to me, I think there's a chance they're the most balanced team that he has had while he's there. But also, no one's confusing Deion Sanders for some great tactician as a head coach. He is a great spokesman, a great CEO, obviously a great motivator and a leader from what I understand. So I'm just curious to see what this team actually looks like in a wide open Big 12. We talk about that all the time on this show. It's anybody's conference to take.
We have a lot of other things to get to, and we have a shortened time before we got to get on out of here. I agree with Tom on one thing. I'm very excited for Colorado this year, and it's largely due to the fact of Deion's back, and I want to see what he can do without Travis Hunter and Shooter. A part of me thinks that there are so many people that just envision him walking off into the sunset, helping his son and one of the best players in college football and a guy that he considers to be a son-like person make it to the NFL. And I think there's a part of him that wants to prove I'm actually in this for what is the daily duty of this job. I'm in it for recruiting. I'm in it to prove that I am here to be a leader of men. I'm not just here for my kids. I'm here to help out the next generation of kids realize that you don't have to go to these major schools like an Alabama or a Georgia or a Florida or an Ohio State to be successful and guide your own pathway to the Sunday game. And Colorado still has a really intriguing roster to me. You get Jordan Seaton back. And again, that was a big time move to even bring him in last year. He's a year older. You feel pretty decent about the wide receiver room. Omarion Miller, I think, is going to have a really big breakout year because if he's no longer sharing reps with Travis Hunter and with Will Shepard and a couple of other guys. Dallin Hayden at one point was viewed as a really solid running back in Ohio State's backfield. Now he is going to be your bell cow back. Your offensive line's got 4 new starters, all from the transfer portal. Your quarterback room is going to be a little bit different. It's a bit of a blend of what's the best course of action for us to build a long-term legacy. Is it the rental quarterback in terms of Caden Salter, or is it Juju Lewis, who, and I've watched some of their film, they've both looked very good in camp, and it doesn't seem like that the metrics are too far ahead of them. Like, sometimes it changes the scenery. It's just the thing that the doctor ordered for a lot of these players, and that might be it for Caden Salter, who led his team to a Conference USA title in an undefeated regular season. Like we got to throw that in there. This was the quarterback for Liberty with Jamie Chadwell in 2023, and their defense, I think, is going to be a lot better, and we know how crazy the Big 12 is. And this is still one of those teams that I think fits in that top half of you catch them on a good day, the defense is able to make some critical stops, and quarterback play is sufficient, they're walking away with the dub. And we already know this, that every single year, the team that we think is going to be really, really good in the Big 12 takes a little bit of a step back. The team that we're sleeping on, they're going to take a step forward. And the team that sits at the bottom is going to land somewhere in the top 3. Colorado's right in that marker of, yeah, they're losing some talent defensively. They're losing some names on the offensive side. So they'll regress. Watch them be in the running for a shot in Arlington going into the final weeks of November. Like, that's what I'm really excited to see. The post-Travis Hunter, Shadur, Sanders era underneath Prime. Because I still think he is a very good coach. We're going to see how good of a coach, but better yet, motivator he is for this locker room moving forward.
There's a lot of good stuff happening week 1, and I hate that these games are on at the same time, but Auburn, Baylor, and Colorado, Georgia Tech both being on Friday night, both of them must see. And
fantastic game.
Georgia Tech's a 4-point favorite right now on the road. Listen, I probably lean Georgia Tech in that right now. Just I have a little more confidence in Haynes King, and I've seen Brent Key, and I do think they're on the come up, but there is no reason that Colorado can't go out and win that game. I think that game is going to be one of the more fun games of week 1. Just like I think Auburn Baylor will be a ton of fun. Hugh Freeze has made some fun comments today, which we probably won't get to, but still something to maybe at least take a little note of. Colorado, Georgia Tech to start this thing off. And I don't think Colorado's sunk by any means if they don't win that game, but they go out and win another opener like they have the last couple of years. I think it gets really fun around Colorado really quickly. Georgia Tech, to me, would be not maybe as high as maybe the Big 12's top of the top, but they win that game in week 1. There ain't another game on their schedule that they can't win. We've talked about anybody in the Big 12 can really win any game, lose any game with a few exceptions. They win that one. Colorado is going to be a force in the Big 12 again. Do they go 9-0 in the Big 12? No, because I don't think anybody does. But I do think that there'll be a lot of fun this year. So
Friday night, real fast. That to me is one of the best Friday nights that we're going to have in college football in a long time. I'm very excited because both of those teams that you mentioned, I think would be in the playoff. I really do. I'm very high on Georgia Tech and on Baylor.
There's always a lot of fun Friday night games like here and there. Like Florida State plays 2 Friday night games, Virginia and NC State. There are always good ones. We don't get another one like this where you get 2 great matchups until you get to week 13, 14, however many weeks there are now with all the buys. But the Friday after Black Friday, right? The one after Thanksgiving where you get Georgia Tech and a bunch of really good matchups. Is the Egg Bowl, do they move it to that day instead of Thanksgiving or whatever? But I do think there's a lot of good stuff that happens that Friday night. Over to Happy Valley. Tom's time to shine. We've gone away from some of the team previews, but we're bringing them back these last few weeks. Only a few weeks left until college football is back. And we're talking about Penn State today. I guess my big question for Penn State, Tom, as we get this thing started, is it fair that they're the favorite in the Big Ten? And is this the year they win it?
I think it is fair that they are the favorite in the Big Ten. I think they can credibly contend for the national championship, whether they win it or not. I mean, I think there's a lot of people who didn't see them making the Final Four last year. And the fact that they were arguably a drive away from making the national championship definitely surprised a lot of Penn State fans. But still, it was like, okay, that was a good football team they put on the field last year. So I think there's very little reason why they shouldn't be in contention for the national championship this year. Drew Aller is the most polarizing quarterback in college football. And I think it's because he's such a even keel person. It's kind of like looking at a piece of art, is that it's entirely up for your interpretation. You hate it or you love it, because there really is no strong emotional pull one way or the other. He just stays level. I think you've seen incremental progress from him every single year that he's been a starter. 23 to 24 to 25. The consistency has been that he does not turn the ball over all that much, and he is accurate with the football. However, he's also been consistent in his struggles against the big time opponents in the big time games. Will he make that leap this year? I think the positive for Drew Aller, I don't believe he has to be Superman for Penn State to win a national championship this year. This is going to be very old school Penn State football. You have two stellar running backs in Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. You return 5 offensive line starters from last year, 4 out of 5 of the initial starting 5, but you returned 5 guys who played considerably last year and have a lot of cohesion. So I feel like Andy Kotelnicki is going to cut down on the gadgets, and it's going to be a lot more conventional running the football. On paper, should be a better wide receiver core, but we're not really going to know until Penn State plays Oregon on September 27th, and they really get into Big Ten play, because their non-con is just their non-con. On defense, I mean, that's where I have the most questions. Jim Knowles at defensive coordinator makes you feel good. There's a lot of people in Ohio State and Oklahoma State who say, yeah, it takes years for a system to implement, so you got to keep an eye on that situation. There's a chance Penn State's offense is better than its defense for the first time in maybe 8 years, which is it's just almost unheard of at Penn State. It's been such a defensive-led team for decades now, Joe Paterno to now James Franklin. My curiosity defensively, what's the defensive end situation now that Abdul Carter is gone? You know what you have at Denied and Sutton. Injuries at the other defensive end spot have created a question mark and unproven players. Depth at defensive tackle is a question. Linebacker, you got Amari Campbell from UNC. You feel good about that, but you're running a 4-2-5, so you should be able to mask some of the lack of depth you have at linebacker. Safety is going to be strong, not as strong as it was last year, but I think still very strong with Zachy Wheatley. And you have a lot of pieces there that got a fair amount of play last year. Cornerback should be the deepest position on the entirety of the team. AJ Harris could wind up being the best defensive back in America. So I think you're going to see a lot more coverage pressures and coverage sacks come from Jim Knowles this year. It might be a little bit more bend but don't break from his style. And I think this is an offense that's going to be able to put up points. Is it going to be video game numbers? I just don't think so. That's never been the style for James Franklin during his time at Penn State. And again, the overarching question, can James Franklin actually win the big one? I think their over-under on win totals, depending on where you look, is about 10.5 in the regular season. Those 2 big ones, home against Oregon in a whiteout at night in September, and then at Ohio State, all the storylines I just mentioned, Jim Knowles returning to the national champions, Ohio State. There's so much that's playing in Penn State's favor this year, but I think kind of as we all saw in the playoff last year, anything can happen. How many people had Tennessee getting blown out by Ohio State? How many people saw Oregon getting blown out by Ohio State? How many people saw Notre Dame making it to the national championship? While so much of this can be chalk, I think there's a lot of unpredictability still with the playoff, and Penn State falls right into that category of about 5 or 6 teams where you're like, I think they can do it, but you just won't know until we get into, October, November, really.
Yeah, and it's really like 3 seasons, because nobody even had Ohio State making it out. I mean, yeah, people had them making it out of the first round, but nobody thought they'd go on to do what they did. Yeah, it's really just about when you get hot. And that's what's so hard right now about college football is there's almost like 3 seasons, right? There's your September until November, then November is almost its own season, and then the playoff is its completely other season, right? Like nobody thought Oregon was going to get blown out. Nobody thought, Arizona State would have a chance. Nobody had Notre Dame in the national championship. You get an injury to a quarterback and a team you're playing against, and how does that impact things? So yeah, Cole as an outsider, right? Like not a Big Ten guy, but somebody who's obviously very familiar. Are you picking Penn State to win this thing from a Big Ten perspective? Again, I think the playoff is predicting a playoff right now is incredibly hard to do. But what are your thoughts on them competing and possibly winning the Big Ten?
So SEC Homer Cole right here, the one who says the SEC is the most dominant conference and deserves to only be on top. In the spring, if you remember, said Penn State was going to win the national title. That's how high I was on them. And they were my number 1 team in my way too early top 25 rankings. At worst, they're going to drop down to number 2 when I release my way too early top 25 rankings. I love everything about Penn State. They made the best hire of the entire offseason by getting Jim Knowles. They have 5 returning offensive linemen with proven experience. They have 2 of the top 5 best running backs in college football. I know that Tom is a little bit weary about Trevor Pena. I love Trevor Pena's tape. I think it's phenomenal. I think Devontae Ross was a very under-the-radar move that is not being talked about enough because he played at Troy while Kyron Hudson was the selling point. I think he's going to be wide receiver 3. I like the tight end room. I like the defense. I like that there is an identity that you're bringing on back, and I like that you're going to have the opportunity to kind of at this season, nut up or shut up. Is it now or never, James Franklin? Because if I'm going to say that about Brian Kelly in the SEC, at some point we got to say it about James Franklin. You went out, you fixed your defense by hiring the one person who last year proved in the regular season could stop you on a regular basis. You went out, you kept your starting quarterback. You have both of your running backs that could very well be in New York City for a Heisman Trophy presentation. You have wide receivers. You have a defense that is going to be not elite, but it's still going to be really bleeping good. And your schedule is manageable to where you should at least be in Indianapolis. I think the Penn State's legit. But there are 2 things that worry me. Number 1, where are we going to sit with Drew Aller in this whole thing? Is he going to be nothing more than just the game manager that was a Sean Clifford-esque clone or a Matt McGloin or a bigger version and not as mobile Trace McSorley? Or is he going to be that difference maker? And can James Franklin win one? It's one, because you know that he the whole prerogative about James Franklin being an overrated head coach is so mind-boggling. Because number 1, where do you rank him? I have him at the end of the top 10. Like, that's where he resides for me. But even if he was like, say, 11 or 12, it's because of one thing. He can't win against top 10 opponents. But that's it. You take him for his recruiting. You take him for his development of talent because you see it, Penn State bringing NFL talent in and year out. You take him for his sustainability. Nobody's going to stop him on that point. So I have no doubts when it comes to Penn State other than the 2 main doubts that we have had for years with this team. Quarterback play, living up to expectations, and can your head coach wield enough voodoo magic on a Saturday afternoon to win one top 10 matchup? You do that, Penn State's going to be in the college football playoff and a very big threat to win the national title.
And I think the criticism of him of not winning the big game, and maybe this is a good ending point for this. I can get either or both of your thoughts on this. I think that's a little unfair too, because what we're basically saying is he's not pulling upsets. He's not beating teams that have more talent than him. Most of the time, that's the issue. It's not that he's losing games he shouldn't. It's not that he's underperforming. He's just, most of the time, not all, but a lot of Franklin's losses are to teams that had more talent than he had. And it's hard to, I don't know, that's a really minor fault, right? It's like losing a race to a guy that's faster than you, right? And so, yeah, I mean, you'd like to pull upsets here or there, but man, that is a really, in my opinion, that's a very weak criticism of him. And I'm not calling you saying it. I think that the narrative itself is just weak to basically say, yeah, he doesn't pull enough upsets. Who does? Like, who is the coach out there that is consistently pulling upsets that they should not win? There are very few, if any. Like, most of the time, the better team wins in these things, right? The team with more talent, the team that we think should win, most of the time wins. Or if there's a coach that is consistently pulling upsets, they're also losing games they're not supposed to. Brian Kelly's won a lot of games that they shouldn't have won, but they've also lost a lot of games they should have won. I don't think it's quite the same when you look at Penn State. They usually win the games they're supposed to and then lose the games they're supposed to as well. So I don't know. I think the criticism of him being overrated because he can't win the big one, those big ones are typically his team being outmanned. This year, to follow all that up, this year, that's fine. Is this the year where they're the least outmanned that they've ever been? Is this their best chance to pull an upset, and the upset itself being a little bit smaller than it ever has been before? I think that's probably fair. I think this would be the one where you'd say, yeah, dog, now it's time to go win. But shoot, you're still asking a team to go win in Columbus, and that's, against still a top 3 roster in college football. I think that, this would be the year to do it, but I think it's a little bit of an unfair criticism.
Tom,
that we have of him at times.
Tom, is it fair to say that just after a while you're done of hearing that this is the year, and then you know that on the schedule it's an 0-2 start because you're facing off against the number 5 team and the number 3 team? Like, that's the criticism that I have. It's that it's every year, okay, Where is number 5? Where is number 3? Where is number 4? And where is number 1? If they're on the schedule, just chalk that up as a loss. And I think that that's where, when you have the pride of Penn State, the pedigree of Penn State, the expectations at Penn State, you kind of get a little exhausted having to defend, hey, you're really good, except in those top 5 games.
Oh yeah, we acknowledge it's a 2-game season pretty much every single year. At least the smart Penn State fans completely understand that. I look at it this way: is 2023, everybody thought we were winning the national championship because Drew Aller was in and Sean Clifford was out, and that was illogical. That was hoping for the second coming, and he was in his first year as a starter and a true sophomore. It was an unreasonable expectation. Last year, I think there was confidence, but it was the letdown somehow from 2023, which whatever. This year, it feels like everything's aligned, and it feels like this is potentially the best coordinator tandem in the country. A lot of Penn State fans feel safer knowing that James Franklin isn't as involved in that stuff because he's a better CEO. He's very good at that stuff. So I think the pieces are in place. I'd love to feel more confident about the defense, but maybe I'll feel that way by October. Let's not forget, Abdul Carter switched from linebacker to defensive end last year. People at Penn State were saying, I don't think it's going to work until mid-October. And then it started working.
On to our resident SEC homer.
Yeah.
Let's talk, not Tom, and certainly not me. Let's talk.
No, you, naturally. We all know it's you, Danny Cannell.
Let's talk Danny Jr. I have a highlight tape that I am about to put out of today is 31 days until FSU kicks off. It's 31 days till a lot of teams kick off, of the choke it doke where Florida State came back from 31-3 and Cannell has a rushing touchdown there. And I can't wait to make his day by posting that here when we get off the show. But on to the SEC. UGA, again, doing a quick team preview, then we'll get to the wild card. We'll get out of here on time, I think, today. Thoughts on what the Bulldogs will look like this year. Everyone's big question is the quarterback position, but I think offensive line, defense need to step up a little bit better than they were last year. What are your thoughts on Georgia, Cole?
Well, Mr. Kenny Donnell, let's start off by saying that this is going to be a really, really interesting year because last season I thought was Kirby Smart's best coaching job. It wasn't just the fact of you being able to lose 2 games to Alabama and Ole Miss and still win the SEC. I think it was that all the things that you were dealing with off the field going into the season. I think that knowing that this team had a little bit less juice on the offensive line than in years past. The defensive line wasn't as physical as we're accustomed to seeing. The wide receivers led the country in drops, and your quarterback that a lot of people thought was the number 1 overall player in this year's draft kind of was a problem at times, throwing into double coverage and triple coverage and giving teams a chance to fight back. Yeah, that says a lot about where you are as a head coach. And I think that anybody who is doubting Georgia's fall off, it needs to be examined at this point. But there is still some questions about where Georgia is going into this season. They're replacing 4 starters on the offensive line. And the thing is that in years past, really wouldn't be that worried. But now you're talking about players that are leaving to go in the transfer portal and get bigger NIL checks because they want to start. So the depth of Georgia, just like it was at Alabama for years, it is no longer a thing. So who are those guys that are going to step on up? You feel good about where you are on, I would say, at least the right tackle spot with Ernest Green coming on back in, and Drew Bobo is going to start. But you do wonder, hey, how is Micah Morris going to step on up this year? How is Monroe Freeling going to have a bigger role this year? What's Daniel Calhoun going to look like this season? And what do we feel about the guys that are freshmen like Dontrell Glover or Martin Short? Are they going to add in some more value to our team? The running back room, I think, is going to be really potent. Nate Frazier's back, and he's the lead back. They brought in Josh McCray from Illinois, who was probably going to be their number 3 running back for the Illini to take over that Trevor Etienne row. There's a guy by the name of Bo Walker, which, by the way, how do you not consider throwing a little bit of money at one point down on him to win the Heisman Trophy when your name is Bo Walker in the SEC? I mean, Herschel Walker, Bo Jackson, the story writes itself. He's going to be a stud down the line. I think that you're going to go back to seeing that old ground and pound rushing attack that was so substantial to the success of Georgia, both in the early stages of the Kirby Smart era, at times when Mark Richt was still calling the shots, and then even at times in the last 2 years when they went to a national title. The wide receiver room, I think, is going to be better because Zachariah Branch is coming on in. And everyone seems to be talking so highly about him that the problem was always resided on the issues out in Los Angeles with the offense personnel with Lincoln Riley. It's not an issue for how they want to run him in Mike Bobo's system. They also brought in Noah Thomas from Texas A&M, and he doesn't drop a lot of balls. and he is a mismatch nightmare inside of the red zone, which I think could be really beneficial, just like Brock Bowers was a few years ago as the X receiver. They also brought back in Colby Young, who missed almost all of last season because of the incident off the field, but he was cleared of that exoneration, so now he is in the locker room. Lucky Lawson, I think, is a very good receiving tight end. Oscar Delpa's back as another tight end. So the weapons are there, and then I think that you look at the defense, the thing that I really want to see with this Georgia squad this year, can they get back that bark? Like, honestly, the thing that made Georgia so intimidating for teams, for my money at least, was they were not afraid to punch you in the mouth, beat your ass, and then the opposing team said, thank you for stopping. We don't want any more. We'll just let you handle business against us. And it never felt that way last year. Even in the Kentucky game, if Mark Stoops has the balls to drop it and go for it on fourth down, we're maybe talking about an upset in week 3 in Lexington right after the Wildcats got dismantled by South Carolina. I mean, the game against Ole Miss, you bring in a backup quarterback who has never really seen significant action, and he is moving and grooving and slicing and dicing and picking you apart like it's just chump change. That's not the standard at Georgia. So I want to see if you have that fight back. Elo Meduzzi is a name that I'm very high on, the Army transfer. He was a good run stopper last year in the American Conference. I think he was a solid pass rusher. He's going to be playing that Jack linebacker role with Glenn Schumann. If you go to Georgia at this point to be developed by Glenn Schumann to become a linebacker. There's guys that got drafted like in the top 100 that played less than 40% of snaps because of, hey, Glenn Schumann got his hands on them, worked with it, and kind of flushed them out. Phrasing, immunity. We're going to throw that one to the tank. I'm not going to get called out for on out of context college football. So phrasing there. But still, I'm really high on him. I think that KJ Bolden's going to have a really good year taking on over for Malachi Starks. Dalen Everett's back for another season. Jonell Aguero's coming on in. And then remember the two names, Zayden Walker and Elijah Griffin. Griffin was the 5-star defensive tackle. I think that he may have a big enough role this upcoming year. I don't know if it'll be in certain reps on third down or if it will be as a pass rusher, but I think he is going to be a pretty substantial name. And then I also mentioned Zayden Walker. He's going to be playing that MAC linebacker spot. I think that there's going to be the very similar approach that they had with him that they did with CJ Allen a few years ago. We got to get him on the field because if he has got to be consistent, he's too damn good to go ahead and put to the wayside. So I'm excited to see what those provide. Couple games that you got to look forward to. Of course, is it a Kirby problem or is it an Alabama problem when they face off in Sanford Stadium, a place that they don't lose ever? They haven't lost since 2019 against the Crimson Tide. They welcome in Texas at the end of the year. And then the Mercedes-Benz game against Georgia Tech. One of the best games of 2024. The 8 overtimes. It was a phenomenal moment of where you kind of saw this Georgia Tech team with that fight and integrity. I don't know if we're going to get that because it won't be played at Bobby Dodd Stadium, which again pisses me the hell off. But still, I'm excited to see those games. I think that Tennessee in week 3 is also going to be a really big test for Gunnar Stockton, who I will also throw in. Gunnar Stockton, as much as we want to say he is a game-managing quarterback, game managers have won national championships in Athens, GA, consistently. And by the way, he was not the problem in the SEC championship, and he was certainly not the problem or the biggest problem when the loss in the Sugar Bowl to a team in Notre Dame.
Tom, where's Georgia finishing the SEC this year? As I need a non-SEC bias take here.
Okay, I'll go a step further. Outside the top 4 or inside the top 4?
I'd say inside the top 4. I could see them finishing as best as second. I think Texas has something that you feel a little bit more confident in what they're going to put on the table there. Arch being a big X factor. I know everybody wants to anoint him, but if he is everything that people believe him to be, could be a huge year for Texas. So Georgia, Alabama, LSU, you might even be able to throw South Carolina. You could reasonably throw in there. Florida, we talked about of like, all right, what happens with Lagway, all that sort of stuff. Mizzou, potentially. Like, there's a lot of question marks for who can make that top 4, but I still see Georgia in there.
Yeah, I got Georgia top 4. I'd probably even wager that, like, I think they'll be better than either LSU or Bama. So I'll even go top 3. But nobody's going to be shocked if we're sitting here in December talking about it and we're all doing a preview for another SEC championship for Kirby Smart. Doubt him again and he'll probably go win it. Running out of time here. Tom, what you got on the wild card?
This will be quick because we got to get out of here soon for Cole's obligations. This is staying within the SEC. I was texting you guys about this a little bit. Hugh Freeze is acknowledged telling defensive coordinator DJ Durkin to go easier on quarterback Jackson Arnold in the spring. Freeze says offensive coaches are working closely with Durkin regarding practice plans. Quote, the number one priority for practice is for our quarterback to leave the field confident. So I kind of want to do this almost as like a PTI, rest in peace, around the horn kind of close to the show. I'll let Cole go first. I'll ask, is this a situation where Hugh Freeze is almost out of time at Auburn, or is this a situation where Jackson Arnold has wicked PTSD from Oklahoma?
It's the Hugh Freeze thing, in my opinion. But honestly, I don't have a problem with this. It's spring practice. You don't need your quarterback who's trying to get implemented into a new system hurt. And I understand we got to give a lot of credit to where this Auburn defense is. It was one of the better units in the SEC that kind of fell apart last year because of the national perspective with the offensive turnovers. But they were delivering on every spectrum, and they still have some really good players. Keldrick Falk, Kylan Lee, two guys that could be all 8 SEC talents. The problem with Hugh Freeze is you've already said so many out of left field uncontextual things. This is one that you would just go to the grave with. Never say we're making it easy for our quarterback. Like, just die with that on a hill if you have to. Like, in my opinion, it just doesn't need to be said because nobody is going to take it out of context. And if Jackson Arnold looks the part, well, then you can go ahead and lie to everybody and say we pushed his ass in practice. So I just think that this is more so Hugh Freeze losing the locker room, losing the fan base's feel, and them kind of giving a reason to go, dude, if you do not get to 8-4 this season, we may have to go in a different direction. It's now or never. We brought you the recruits. We brought you the NIL money. Time to put pedal to the metal or get the hell out of town.
I'm thankful that every time I think somebody can't say something dumber than Tommy Castellano, someone else comes out and like saves the day for me as an FSU fan. So listen, I saw the Hugh Freeze comments before this where he said you need girth and length in this league.
Phrasing.
Listen, that's the best comment of the offseason. You had it won, Hugh. You had every amazing comment. Amazing comment. Let it ride there. No pun intended. But
phrasing.
Why did you need to follow it up with this? I agree with Cole 100%. Take this to your grave, right? You can do this. I have no problem with you well, maybe in theory I have a problem with you not challenging your quarterback, but whatever. If that's your method that you want to go by for this offseason, fine, do it. Don't tell everybody. Don't say this out loud. Don't admit. Nobody was asking. And even if they were, lie. You lie all the time. You're a college football coach. You lie to players. You lie to parents. You lie to recruits. You lie to your
university. You lied to your university in 2015 when it came to a cell phone.
You lie to everyone. Take this to your grave. There's no reason to say this. Girth and length, good. We don't push our quarterback, not good.
College girls agree with that. Exactly. Same thing, TJ. There we go. No phrasing.
Greatest wild card ever.
Yeah, that one was good. That one was really good. Wrong show here. The Power 2, College Football Addiction. We'll be back next Wednesday at noon. We'll preview a couple more teams. We'll talk a little bit more about the crazy things that Hugh Freeze and others say throughout the week. Appreciate you guys for joining us. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. We'll see you next time.